Hey there, everyone. Welcome to another exciting edition of Ye Old Indie Dude. This is episode 12. Thank you for watching. I wanted to give a personal shout out of thanks to everyone who has subscribed. My name is Jeff Adams, singer, songwriter, musician, independent publisher, and producer with Bucketstomp Productions. Please be sure and check out some of my original music on this channel. There's all sorts of new stuff all the time. For other links, please be sure to check out jeffadams.info. Thanks. So welcome to the channel. Please be sure to subscribe and hit the bell icon so you can receive updates as to when new material is posted. This is a series where I focus on inspiration and motivation for the creative individual, because through creative expression and exploration we find a certain sense of fulfillment we might not otherwise find. Overall, these concepts and practice can increase that sense of meaning and purpose in our lives. Of course, these ideas can work outside of the arena of creativity too. But isn't everyone creative? Yes, that's the point. Even if you're not a creative per se, which is to say, only creative as means of sustenance, we all use creativity in many ways throughout the workday. In a variety of scenarios, we go through many exercises of problem solving which require problem solving skills. Such skills are derived through the imagination. Of course, some people are a lot more creative than others. Regardless of everything we might have in common, we're each individual beings. But what even is creativity? I'm going to go into this quite a bit. Merriam-Webster defines creativity using a definition that has the word creativity in it, so I don't really think it's an adequate definition. It's just my opinion on the matter, but let's see what Merriam-Webster has to say. The definition of creative: marked by the ability or power to create. Given to creating. The creative impulse. A creative genius. Yeah, I'm going to define something by using that word to define it. The second definition of creativity, according to Merriam-Webster, is having the quality of something created. The etymology of the English word creativity comes from the Latin term to create, which was creare, which means to create or to make. It derives from a suffix of Latin, and the word create appeared in English as early as the 14th century, notably divine creation, as seen in Chaucer's the Parson's Tale. However, its modern meaning as an act of human creation didn't emerge until after the Enlightenment. In 1927, Alfred North Whitehead published Process and Reality. He's credited with having coined the term creativity to serve as the ultimate category of his metaphysical scheme. Whitehead actually coined the term, our term, still the preferred currency of exchange among literature, science, and the arts, a term that quickly became very popular and so omnipresent. Creativity is a phenomenon whereby something new and somehow valuable is formed. The created item may be intangible, such as an idea, a scientific theory, a joke, musical composition. Or it could be a physical object, such as an invention, a printed literary work, or a painting. So, I could go into the research. There are a lot of different fields that have tried to pin this down. What makes up creativity or the creative individual? All the possible aspects of research wherein the concept can be defined. This matter has been extensively studied over the last 120 years or so, especially more in the 20th century. The different research that has been done pertains to the following. Get ready. Process theories, convergent and divergent thinking, cognitive approach, explicit implicit interaction theory, conceptual blending, everyday imaginative thought, dialectical theory of creativity, the creativity quotient, the psychometric approach, the social personality approach, intelligence and creativity as a subset of it, and vice versa, and both as overlapping and also distinct constructs, as both incidental and coincidental, and of course studies in neuroscience, working memory in the cerebellum, creativity stemming from the temporal lobe as opposed to the frontal lobe, sleep associations, personality and mental health associations, and sociological studies. Creativity studies vary, of course. Differences in how creativity is viewed differ also in various countries and cultures. For example, cross-cultural research centered in Hong Kong found that Westerners view creativity more in terms of the individual attributes of the creative person, such as their aesthetic taste, while, for example, Chinese people view creativity more in terms of the social influence of creative people, for example, what they can contribute to society. There was a study that surveyed 28 African languages and found that 27 of the 28 had no word which directly translated to creativity, the exception being Arabic. It suggested that the lack of a word for it in the language has impacts on how creativity exists in certain cultures. Research studies have been found from a number of disciplines, mainly psychology, business studies, and cognitive science, but also education, the humanities, technology, engineering, philosophy, particularly philosophy of science, theology, sociology, linguistics, arts, economics, and mathematics, covering the relations between creativity and general intelligence, personality type, mental and neural processes, mental health, or artificial intelligence. The potential for fostering creativity through education and training, the fostering of creativity for national economic benefit, and the application of creative resources to improve the effectiveness of teaching and learning. I put some links to further examples of this research down below, so you can look for yourself to see the implications of how vast the studies have been in order to try to come to terms with what this is. There's also research as to whether or not creativity can be learned and thereby utilized in the workplace and maximized for profit, including now computational creative studies. There's also, unfortunately, negative and malevolent creativity, the latter being attributed to crime, whereas the former may still cause harm, though unintentional. In Scotland, in the Scottish education system, creativity is identified as a core skill set for learning, life, and work, and involves looking at familiar things with a fresh eye, examining problems with an open mind, making connections, learning from mistakes, and using the imagination to explore new possibilities. As an aside, if you're feeling creatively drained, the best place to look is often the writings of creative people you admire. From an article by Benjamin Earl Evans, and I'll leave a link down below to this article so you can check out the entire thing. He said, "Humanity has revered creativity throughout time, from ancient Greeks to modern-day painters, poets, and web designers. It's one of those ineffable things that's extremely hard to define, but you absolutely know it when you see it. It's also the driving force for so many of us, to the point where we've created an entire category of worker that's just called creative." Then there's other things that Benjamin Evans has to say to this regard in his article. He has a tendency of saying that there's brutal truths about creativity that no one wants to talk about, such as your ideas are not original. There's no such thing as a new idea. Only an authentic idea. Also, inspiration is a myth. So they say, inspiration and originality are myths. One Harvard researcher, Shelley Carson, named it the incubation period, which comes about as the result of divergent thinking, or the period when you're distracted and letting your mind think about other things. That's why it feels like it's random. Your brain is consciously working on other things, but your subconscious is furiously working without you realizing it. Also, everyone is, or can be, creative. We all want to feel special, but the truth is, everyone is creative. Creativity is a human quality that exists in every single one of us. The degree of your or anyone else's creativity doesn't depend on an innate quality, but rather on how hard you work. You could be as talented as Picasso, but if you don't pump out the product, what's it matter? Creativity is worthless without a great deal of effort. It's also suggested that you'll never be great until you can be vulnerable. All inspiration and originality are myths, supposedly. Vulnerability is real, and it's a real solid necessity for anyone who wants to do great creative work. Whether it's a photo, a song, a poem, a story, a painting, a blog post, a web design, a tweet. Something made you feel recently. Now, think about what that creative person must have had to put into that work in order to affect you like that. Also, it's suggested that fear is a necessity. I've said in the past that it can be definitely an impediment. However, just as creativity is in all of us, so is fear. Fear is your body's way of protecting you from harm, whether it be physical or psychological. For a creative, fear is also your body's way of telling you that you're onto something exceptional. Instead of shying away from it, move toward it, own it, embrace it. And I'm talking about the arena of ideas, obviously. If you have a fear of table saws, perhaps some prior training would be a good idea. Use your brain, of course. If you're afraid of something that could be harmful, think twice. It will bring you to new heights, however, if you let it. Also, creativity is hard. More difficult for some people than for others, I think. A lot of people give up in frustration when they're trying to complete a project because they think it's some sort of creative block, whereas it's not really the case. Frustration's an essential part of the creative process. Best-selling author Elizabeth Gilbert talks about the importance of frustration in an Inc. magazine interview. The frustration, she says, the hard part, the obstacle, the insecurities, the difficulty, the I don't know what to do with this thing now. That's the creative process, she says. I hope that gives you some inspiration, because I have not found that to be the case. But it's still not easy. Know that if it wasn't hard, it wouldn't be worth doing. It doesn't get easier. Is there original thought? After all, the answer is yes and no. Yes, there are original ways to express thoughts, ideas, concepts, philosophies, but no, the actual subject upon which these thoughts, ideas, concepts, and philosophies are based on are not original. There's no such thing as originality, just authenticity. I'll leave some links to this regard down below, of course, of further elaborating upon the research. I just wanted to touch on different ideas. This next one is quite something. It's an article by Gillian Groening called "The Reason Why Creative Thinkers Need More Sleep, Don't Work Well in Groups, and Might Be Psychopaths." Research has found links between artistic ability and psychopathic behavior. Is this inspiring? Suggesting that creative people require higher levels of emotional disinhibition, dishonesty, and risk-taking to cultivate their talents. Yikes. While high-level creativity often transcends the usual modes of logical thought and may even superficially resemble psychosis, creative thinking generally occurs in the rational and conscious frame of mind. While creativity and psychosis can coexist, it's far from the source or the price. Thank goodness. While it's often argued that creativity is something that every individual can learn to access, there is a study suggesting that certain personality traits register across the board for creative people, and these traits include intuition, extroversion, and openness to experience. When asked to generate a new idea, our brains instantly direct us to what is most familiar. The past. Future situations are created by details we have salvaged from previous scenarios. Having a strong episodic memory can therefore be helpful in creative thinking. I myself have hyperthymesia, so I have quite the episodic memory. Creativity seems to be on the decline. Children are not performing as highly on creative tests as they once were. This could be attributed to technology, I would say. Sarcasm, it's said, increases creative thinking. I love this part. Also known to trigger conflict, sarcasm is now proven to boost creative thought by stimulating abstract thinking. Unlike the other forms of humor, sarcasm does not necessarily produce a positive mood, which creates a unique cognitive benefit. Also, creative people are attracted to spaces conducive to creative activity. And I don't just mean creating a space where you're by yourself and can write something down. It's a social situation, whether it was Paris in the early 1900s or New York in the 1970s, or a variety of other places over time. Certain locales at certain times will turn into artistic hubs. Always found this to be inspirational, having been in such hubs in my time. Cheap rent, supportive arts communities, and access to jobs and funding are all factors. So today we've explored the concept of creativity with a lot of the research, or at least references to more in-depth research as to what it means, what it is, what it entails, and what it is not. For as much as research seems to have figured it out, there are still many approaches to understanding creativity. It does seem to be just as nonetheless mysterious. But I think it comes down to using your imagination, developing it, developing your skills, and putting in the work. Organize your thoughts and optimize your time. I personally like to use a calendar, a work journal, and a categorized to-do list in order to do this. Writing down things at all times, of course, ideas and concepts. Thanks for watching this week's episode of Ye Olde Indie Dude. If you enjoyed this video, please be sure and push the thumbs up button below, and please subscribe. And please press the bell icon so you can be notified when new videos are released. Please check out some of the other content on my channel too, if you'd be so kind. I have a lot of studio albums and singles on this channel. Also, some performance releases before 2020, and also special live special presentations during 2020 with some online music performance specials as well. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.